Greetings and welcome to StageStruck, a production of the Cape and Islands Theater Coalition, a collaboration of 24 live theaters from Woods Hole, the Islands, to Provincetown. On this program, we'll be letting you know about what's now playing on stage at theaters across the Cape and Islands from our 24-member theaters. And we'll bring you the latest theater news, we'll take you behind the scenes of the theater community, and give you some of the history of theater on Cape and the Islands. I'm your host, David Kaplan, Executive Director of the Theater Coalition. I hope you enjoy the program and I welcome your feedback. Please email me at info@capecodlive.org with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Debbie Foreman. I'm here with Linda Lavin, Steve Bakunis, and Nina Schuessler. Linda and Steve were performing this July at the Harwich Junior Theater in a show called Portrait of the Artist. And Nina, so tell me a little about it. I know you've had a long history with
Linda and Steve.
Yes.
Yeah, I have. I met Steve in the early 90s and we did a lot of theater together, and he came and worked at HJT. We performed in Medea. He played Jason, I was Medea, and he was our tech director, and he did a fantastic job. At the same time, I was working with the playwright Wendy Kesselman and directing several of her plays, one of them Tale of Two Cities and The Executioner's Daughter and The Juniper Tree. And Steve was, you know, you were in The Executioner's Daughter and you were in Tale of Two Cities. And so at that time, Steve was deciding that he was going to move on from the Cape. At the same time, I went to see Linda in Dyer Van Frank in Boston with Wendy. And we said hello, and you told me about a program that you were developing called What Girls Know, which was to work with adolescent girls and to have a workshop with them. And I said, oh, I wish you would come and do that at HJT. It's the perfect thing for us. So Linda brought Brenda Curran to HJT, and they did a fantastic week-long workshop. I'll let Linda tell you a little bit more about that. And then I said, my friend Steve just moved to Wilmington. Linda was living in Wilmington, North Carolina at the time. And I said, you two should meet. And she said, well, I'd like to meet him. And I said, he's a great guy, and kismet, they met. And the rest is history. But last night they did a wonderful benefit for HJT called Portrait of an Artist, and Steve painted the most phenomenal portrait of Linda, as Linda talked about her life, and they both bestowed so much joy and wisdom upon the audience. It was just a night to remember. So thank you so much for helping our theater.
Thank you. Nice to give back.
Thanks.
Yes. So, for people that didn't see, there was, how many seats do you have at the theater?
166, and we were pretty much full last night, thank God.
but this audience is much larger, so for people who didn't see, can you tell me a little bit about, I know you were painting, Steve, and interviewing Linda, and so how did that go? And also, Linda, I heard that one of the themes of what you discussed was starting over. And of course, you've had a long career, theater, film, TV, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. But in all these successes that you've had, apparently, from what I've heard, there have been these ups and downs, as most careers. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think that the misconception about us is that you get a Broadway show or you have a success in a venue, whether it's off or on Broadway or in a film or a television show, and then you shoot right to the top. And what we try to talk about through Steve's questioning while he's painting a portrait of me is how life isn't like that. Life isn't a clean trajectory to the top. At least my career hasn't been that. It may be for certain people, and other people may have that in other forms of work or life as well. But my life has been a right turn here and a left turn there, and a fallow period or a period of questioning where there wasn't the kind of work that I was hoping to get, or there wasn't any work. And then all of a sudden there was, and then that job starts and it ends, and then another opportunity is either there or we have to pursue it. So what I was talking about is the difference between the smooth ride, which is kind of mythical, or the real life ride, which is bumpy, and which does include starting over. And I think of myself as somebody who's started over a number of times. And as Nina said, one of the big starting over moves for me was moving to North Carolina in 1994, where I knew no one, but I went to make a movie there. And I fell in love with the town and moved there, knowing no one, and started a new life. And that's the kind of starting over that I've done. And then I met Steve through Nina, and we started a life together. So there's a lot of starting over, I think, for a lot of people. People will recognize that. Sometimes it's geographic. Sometimes it's a starting over of a kind of career move or a relationship move. But I think life is filled with those possibilities.
And in the starting over, you may have time to reflect and then go back to, because you have moved through various venues, some actors or actresses really stay with film, or they stay with the theater, or TV, for example. But you've done a pretty broad spectrum of work.
Yeah.
The Broadway Bound, and then Alice, the TV series. So,
well, the other way around. I did Alice for
first,
9 years, and then did Broadway Bound. But
yes.
I had worked in the theater for 15 years before I went to California to do Alice. It's really not a plan. There's no plan involved. There's no. It's about making choices in the moment. What the opportunities are. Saying yes, sometimes saying no, passing on something, making a left turn, trying something else. So it's about being fluid.
Yes, and certainly you have been.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Steve, I spend a lot of time interviewing, but I don't, and I actually paint as well, but I don't do them at the same time. So how was that for you?
Challenging. It was a concept I came up with just off the cuff. Someone asked us to do a fundraiser, and they suggested we dress up as George and Martha Washington and act out a scene from history. And I thought, that's not really our style. So I said, we'll commit to the fundraiser, but we'll come up with something that'll work for us. And this just, I don't know where it came from, but I just thought, hey, why don't I paint your portrait and we'll talk. And so we did it, and it's evolved. We've done it 5 times so far, and it's an evolution, and I'm certainly learning as I go, both of us. It's always spontaneous. It's not scripted. And the fact that, we know each other intimately, it's about really just sharing our life. So I'm trying to paint this portrait, and I'll ask her a question, and she'll answer, and it's never the same. And sometimes I'll hear it differently than I've ever heard it before, and it provokes a thought. It's like, oh, really? So, when you found success, was your mother jealous of that success? My own curiosity. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's a calculated thing that I have all these ideas that I want to, throw to her. It's just, and she's encouraged me. I wanted to, believe me, I wanted to rehearse this thing. I wanted it scripted. I was afraid. Once I committed, I had this great idea, like, hey, I'll paint your portrait. And then when the time came, it was like, oh my God, I have to paint her portrait. And I'm a painter. I can look at you and make an impression. And that's how I work. And I thought, wow, and I'm going to be in front of people, and I'm going to have to do this. And so the first one was challenging. Second one got better. And I've come to a place where I have the support of Linda, and we've done a lot together. We've traveled the world, and a lot of times we'll be in the middle of some crazy thing, and we'll look at each other and go, honey, it's just you and me, and everyone else just happens to be in the background. And I think that's what happens on stage, is that the focus is we're really here for each other. So she grounds me. So I'm, the painting's not working out, and I'm wiping out half of it, and I'm trying to paint it, and at the same time I'm trying to think how can I lead this conversation to where I think it should go. I don't know how I do it. It just, I just show up in the moment and trust the facility that I have to do it and do it.
So you also said, which is kind of interesting, which I find happens to me, is that Linda says something and it leads you to a question that maybe you didn't ask before. Now, of course, you know her very well, and so you probably know a lot about her, but sometimes a question will elicit maybe something from Linda that you didn't know?
Precisely, and that happens almost every time. And a lot, I try to dig for, her feeling about the experience. And I told people last night, hey, if you want to know things, Google her, and you could find all the specifics. But, Linda's been very willing to open up, emotionally about how these things affected her. And I think that's really important because people have this idea about successful people and celebrities and stars and how they must be and how they must think and how they must act. And I certainly had them because I didn't know Linda's work. I just knew that she was a celebrity. So when we met, I had all these misconceptions about how she must, after having a TV series for 9 years, she must think so much of herself and be so confident and not realize that she's still hoping to get a job just like I was, and hoping to do it right and to be good and all that. So it was very illuminating for me, and it helped me get better perspective about other people who were successful, and it brought it bridged the gap between what I thought great people were and myself. They were way out in the stratosphere, and once I got to know Linda and saw what that life really is all about, it brought everyone down to a level closer to home, and I felt better about myself in a funny way.
Yeah. Well, I think
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that is pretty interesting because my experience, again, with interviewing people is that sometimes you have these illusions about a celebrity, and my experience has been that most of the time these people are really just not ordinary, but when you meet them and talk to them, they're just very easy to talk to. That's been my experience,
Sure.
that they're not really arrogant or, and I'm sure there are people that are like that, but that has not been my experience. Now, Steve, I know both of you have had a connection with the Cape before this particular performance. Can you talk a little bit about that? Steve and Linda. Linda?
Well, I got here, as Nina said, I worked at the Cape Theaters in my youth in summer stock, a couple of them, one at Falmouth and one in Dennis. But I met Nina because I was doing a program for girls at risk between young teenage girls, and with Brenda Curran, who knew Wendy Kesselman, and Wendy had written a production, an adaptation of The Diary of Anne Frank, in which I appeared on Broadway. And Wendy said, you've got to come and meet Nina Schuessler, and you've got to come to her theater with this program. So Brenda and I came, and we worked with the young people that Nina provided, young girls, and for I think a week or 10 days.
Yeah.
And in a week's time, those girls learned how to make theater from absolutely nothing, to tell their stories and musicalize them, or come from personal experience to a final production in a week. So it's demanding and challenging work, and that's how I got to the Cape. And that was in 1999, the summer of '99, and Nina said, a friend of mine has just moved to Wilmington, and I'd been there 5 years already. And I said, well, people have been so welcoming to me, I'd be happy to meet him and have a coffee and see if there's anything I can do to expend my hospitality to him. I wasn't looking for a romance in any way, and I didn't think of it that way. It was just a chance to give back what I had already gotten from that community. And we met on November 17th at a theater opening, a lot of theater in Wilmington, North Carolina. And we had coffee the following Sunday, and we've been together ever since. It was
So when was this?
1999.
1999.
November of 99,
So
just before
15
the
years,
millennium.
yeah, long time.
The millennium change.
Yes, that's
It's a big
supposedly
change.
a wonderful town. A friend of mine was, one point was head of the Chamber of Commerce there, or whatever it was, in
Okay.
Wilmington. And maybe when you were, I'm not sure when she left, but it was probably Jane Peterson.
She was there last night.
Oh, was Jane there?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Yep.
And a good friend
She's
of
a
hers.
friend of Tony Rivenbach. Who
Oh, she came up to me,
runs-
didn't say
yeah.
her name.
Yes.
I met her
Yes,
too. We had
you
lunch
did.
with her.
Oh, yes, she said, I came to
sometime.
see you, and Tale of the Allergist's Wife, or Hollywood Arms.
I think Hollywood
Yeah,
Arms.
Yes,
sweet. Okay, yes, very sweet person.
And she was, I forget what it was called, Tourist Bureau or whatever it was.
Something like that.
Years, and that's how she met Tony, and I've met Tony. And there's a wonderful
Tony
thing-
comes to the Cape every summer.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He comes to visit Jane, I
And he
think.
That's who Jane, okay, now I got it, okay.
Yeah, he comes to visit
That's
Jane.
Jane.
And he played Scrooge at HJT in A Christmas
in A
Carol
Christmas
years
Carol.
ago.
And
so
there's a
it's so funny.
Yeah, the
6 degrees
theater
of
is,
separation.
I can't remember the name of the theater that Tony was head of, right?
The Thalian Hall.
Right, Thalian Hall,
Yeah,
right,
the
yeah.
Opera House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wilmington's, every time, for as long as Jane was there, she used to invite us to go there. And somehow we never got there, and it's supposedly a beautiful town.
Beautiful town.
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
what I hear.
Yeah.
So Steve, tell me a little bit about your background here on the Cape, which goes back to Harvard Junior Theater.
Yeah, I came here in, I think, 1986. I was at a religious cult for about 5 years in Oregon, and I left and came to the Cape. I had a sister here, owned a restaurant. My mom retired here, and a couple other sisters. So I came for a visit and decided to stay. Started an upholstery business, and then walked into a theater one night at the Academy, you know, just looking for something to do in, you know, the wintertime, and they were rehearsing Pirates of Penzance, and a woman, Nancy Fadley, came up and said, can you sing? And I said, well, I don't know, you know. She goes, well, come on over here. Took me to a piano, had me sing the scales, and she said, you want to be in a play? I'm like, you know. So they took me upstairs, and Miles Corey was directing Pirates, and they had lost one of the cops, and they were opening in 2 weeks, and they said, you know, we're desperate, you know, can you do this, please? And I'm like, sure. And I just jumped in and had a blast. You know, I was so, you know, my life was kind of cloistered for those 5 years, and it was like a breakout, like, wow, I can sing and dance and have a good time. I'm free. And so I just really poured myself into it, and, you know, got a nice kind of standout review, and it was like, wow, maybe this is, you know, my calling. And so I did community theater for about 2 years, and met Nina in that time. We hadn't worked together, but, you know, I'd met you in the circuit. And then I got a half scholarship to Trinity Rep, and then went off, and then ultimately came back here after a couple of years, and then ended up working as a tech director, worked with Nina in a couple of plays, lived up in the attic of the theater. Also lived in the Artists Theater, Miles Corey, in the Underground Mall in Orleans.
Oh, right.
Had that
yes.
theater for a while, and when I was out in California, he invited me to come back and do a play, and so I lived in one of the little cubbies in there, and so yeah, I mean, the Cape always provided me in my search to try to find success after going to Trinity. You know, I wasn't, you know, doing so well, and then I'd get a call. It's like, hey, good part for you, you know, and I'd just, wherever I was, I'd come back to the Cape and do a play and feel satisfied because it's really what I wanted to do, but it never afforded me, you know, money or any opportunity. So then after a while, I'd go back, you know, to try to pursue my dreams again, you know, out west, and then I'd hear about another play and I'd come back. So
it's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
Do you think about acting now? I know you do this, and maybe talk a little bit about the cabaret show that you've put together. You're the drummer, and Linda sings.
Yes, I started this act about 12 years ago, and Steve has been a drummer in his young life, and he watched the act. I had a trio, and I'm a singer and have always been a singer. And Steve looked at it after about a few months and a few dates, and he said, you know, I think I can do that. I think I can I can be your drummer. And he had been a rock drummer, and I'm pretty much singing show tunes and jazz, American songbook.
Okay.
So that's a very different kind of drumming. And he made a commitment, which he does with everything he does. And Steve has enormous talents in many areas. And he's the kind of person who, when he sets his mind to something and says, I can do that, I'd like to try, he works harder than anybody at it. And so he made a commitment to become a jazz drummer and auditioned for my musical director and got the job. So now he's my drummer. And we've just finished a 5-gig tour. We've done 5 club dates in just July in the New York area, Connecticut. We just played Fire Island on Saturday night. And we're coming next August to the Crown and the Anchor. Is that right? Is that the name of the
Crown and Anchor.
The Crown and the Thorn isn't right. The Crown and the Anchor will be at the Paramount Room August 2nd and 3rd, 2015. So we've just booked that room. So we'll be back on the Cape next summer to do that with Billy Stritch, who's my musical director. And this is our CD. It's called Possibilities, named after a song I did in a Broadway show called It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman.
Okay, yes.
And we do You've Got Possibilities from it, and wonderful songs. And the liner notes are by Hal Prince, who was my first big director and mentor in the theater. So we do that together. We play music together, and we have some grand adventures. We travel all over the country with this act.
Yeah.
And,
well, look forward to that.
I hope so.
Yeah,
He'll
that'll
come.
be really, yeah. Maybe they'll even ask me to review it.
Maybe they will. Yeah, it's a great show, and
Yeah.
it's taken a great shape in the 10 years we've been doing it. We've thrown out a lot of material and added new material, and we keep refining it. It's pretty much a story and music of my life, and the songs that I love, and the songs that I grew up with, and songs that I've sung on and off Broadway on stages, and songs that move me and tell my story through song and lyric.
Can you give me some examples of some of the?
Yes, I can. We do It Might As Well Be Spring.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Look Me Over.
Okay.
I open with a song called I've Got My Eyes on You, which I love doing, and then I blend it with another song called You Do Something to Me.
Oh.
So it's really American songbook songs. We do You've Got Possibilities. I do a song I introduced in the Mad Show called The Boy From. And as I say, very romantic, very sweet album this is. It's a great vacation album. It's great
Yeah, I
to
can't
take
wait
in
to
the
listen.
car and slip
Right.
into.
Oh, and yeah.
Yeah, and here's the drummer, and he's absolutely fantastic. And he's become a singer. We've given him
Well,
license.
you did. You had that with Pirates of Penzance,
Again.
right?
Yeah, but I
Again.
never pursued, I did musical theater for a while, but I didn't feel it was my strength. I don't think I was in touch with my true voice. And acting also, when you asked about acting, I think I'm just now finding my voice, and I'm finding it through life, and even doing the portrait thing. I mean, last night it was, it has to be my truth. I'm painting that painting, I'm asking the questions, and I have to love this guy and feel comfortable with him. And I think, in my pursuit of acting, I didn't love him as much, so I didn't trust him as much, and I tried to go beyond him, and that's why I don't think I found great success. I mean, I worked, but my agent used to say, I don't know why you're not a star. You have everything it takes, but why is it not happening?
Right.
And I think it really was because I wasn't connected to the truth of myself, and I didn't embrace me in that way. A small town guy. I never believed. I always thought I was, trying to hide that. But now I embrace. I'm a small town guy.
Right.
And I have some abilities.
And you're finding your own identity too.
Yeah.
And I often think that, and certainly it isn't the case with you, Linda, but I often think that people that have become truly great in like a great Da Vinci or some of the great artists, that's all they do. They focus very narrowly on that particular thing. And maybe that's what you need to do. But in your case, Linda, you've kind of really had a broad, it's performing, but it's pretty broad-based in terms of that. So do you have like a favorite venue or favorite, you know, would you prefer Broadway over TV or over what you're doing now, or?
You know, that's always a complicated question for me, because the simple answer is that there is no difference between one or the other. If I'm performing, I'm performing. If the material is good. If it's not, it doesn't matter if it's on this stage or that stage or on a screen or in a nightclub. It's performing. It's about connecting who I am with you sitting here watching me. And it isn't as broad-based to me as it is to you, the viewer. To me, what it is I've been doing one thing all my life, and that's been exploring who I am through the material that I either choose to sing or through the material that you send me as a script. And I learn the script if it moves me and makes me laugh and cry while I'm reading it, and I say, I need to play this character. I want to express myself through this writing. And so, whether it's a film or a television show or a theater, the best thing for me that I really love doing is short-term engagements. I don't like long runs.
Oh, okay.
I like to do limited engagements. I like them to be over after a few weeks. I like it to be done with, and then I like to do something else or nothing for a while, or find something else to do. But I'm not in love with a long run. Many people can do that, and I don't enjoy it.
You see that, when you see that in the theater on Broadway, and you get a wonderful performance, and they're on for how long? And I'll be there in the audience thinking, they've been doing this for 6 or 8 months or whatever. It must get really tiresome.
Well,
but
it's taxing. I mean, there is no other life where a person is asked to do something 8 times a week at that intensity. No athlete, no opera singer, no dancer, and these are people who may tour all over the world, but they don't do 2 shows twice or 3 times a week and 8 times a week. It's insane, and it's a lot. I mean, there are great roles. Mama Rose in Gypsy is a great role. I did it for 6 months, 8 times a week. It's Herculean, and I think that Stephen Sondheim, I once asked him if he wrote it to kill Ethel Merman. Was that your intention? So it's a lot to do. And we went to see Jim Dale the other night, who's an extraordinary performer, full of energy and vitality and technique, and a music hall performer. And he never shuts up for an hour and a half. And he dances and he sings, he tells stories. And he's amazing, and he does that 8 times a week, and you look at it and think, how do you do it? He's doing a limited run. I don't want to do that for a year anymore. I don't want to do a big musical anymore for a long run, but I do it for a short amount of time because I know what it takes.
Yeah.
There's, it's athletic, and it's technical, it's a voice, it's physical, it's emotional. It's all of that, and one is not getting younger.
None of us are.
No.
Well, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking to you, although I never met you before. Or
Thanks.
maybe I saw Steve at one
And
point.
Mickey, you had
the
Mickey on the show too. Our little dog Mickey.
Yes, he's there. There he is.
He's
yes.
very relaxed.
Well, thank you so much. I really
a
enjoyed
pleasure.
talking to you, both of you.
Our
And
pleasure.
Nina,
Thank
I've
you.
known
Thank you.
forever. Thank you.
Thanks, Nina.
Thank you.
For those of you just joining us, welcome to StageStruck, a regular program all about live theater on Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. StageStruck is produced by the Cape and Islands Theater Coalition. I'm your host, David Kaplan, Executive Director of the Coalition, and this is our Now on Stage segment, where I'll run down what's currently on stage or opening soon at our member theaters. Remember to consult the Theater Coalition's website, www.capecodlive.org, and the websites of your favorite theaters for details and showtimes. Now grab your pen and paper, your calendar, smartphone, or tablet, because here we go. At the Academy Playhouse in Orleans, it's Les Miserables, backed by popular demand and directed by Peter Earle, playing July 23rd through August 23rd. Cape Cod Theater Project, performing at Falmouth Academy, will be presenting 2 staged readings of new plays. Sea Wife, written by The Lobbyists and Seth Moore, directed by Liz Carlton, which will be playing July 17th, 18th, and 19th, and The New Sincerity, written by Alina Smith, directed by Stella Powell-Jones, and running July 24th, 25th, and 26th. At the Cape Playhouse in Dennis Village, it's 1776, America's prize-winning musical, which will be ending its run on July 19th. Opening on July 21st at the Playhouse is A Perfect Marriage, an English romantic farce playing through August 2nd, and that's followed by Pump Boys and Dinettes, a countrified musical directed by Mark Cuddy. On stage at Cape Rep Theater in Brewster is A Light in the Piazza, a soaring romantic musical playing July 29th through August 23rd, and playing on alternate days at Cape Rep's Outdoor Children's Theater. There's Your Good Man Charlie Brown, Lyle the Crocodile, and Pitter Patter Puppets. At the Chatham Drama Guild in Chatham, there's Froggy Went A-Courtin', playing through August 8th. College Light Opera, performing at Highfield Theater in Falmouth, brings you Carousel through July 26th, Les Miserables, July 29th to August 2nd, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, August 5th to the 9th, and Gilbert and Sullivan's HMS Pinafore, August 12th to the 19th. At Catuit Center for the Arts, there's a fabulous one-woman show by Christine Ernst, playing through August 2nd. And opening August 7th and running through August 31st is Grey Gardens, a Tony Award-winning musical. Also opening August 7th and playing in the Black Box Theater at Catuit is Bark Park, a new play by Kaplan Playwriting Prize winner Jim Douglas. Elements Theater in Orleans continues its year-long celebration of the 450th anniversary of Shakespeare's birth with Acting Shakespeare, a retreat for actors and lovers of Shakespeare, August 3rd through 8th. And that's followed by Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, opening August 8th. Harbor Stage in Wellfleet has Artist Descending the Staircase by Tom Stoppard, July 17th to August 9th. And Sister Play, a world premiere production written and directed by John Kolvenbach, August 14th to September 6th. While Harwich Junior Theater continues with Dr. Dolittle, a play with music, through August 2nd, and for the whole family, The Stinky Cheese Man runs through August 21st, and opening August 7th is The Never-Ending Story. Also, be sure to reserve your tickets now for the always popular, Always Patsy Cline, opening August 15th. Martha's Vineyard Playhouse has 2 new world premieres coming up. Search Paul Clayton, written by Larry Moline and playing through August 9th, and Satchel Paige Kansas City Swing, written by Trey Ellis and Ricardo Kahn, playing August 14th to September 6th. Playing at Monomoy Theater in Chatham, it's Rodgers and Hammerstein's South Pacific, opening July 24th through August 2nd, and Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, beginning August 5th and running through the 9th. That's followed by Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs, August 12th to the 16th. Payment Performing Arts Center in Truro presents John Logan's Red, about the artist Mark Rothko, running through August 8th. And for a change of pace, check their website for one-night performances from Dr. John, Tom Rush, Jimmy Tingle, and many others. Peregrine Theater Ensemble in Provincetown will be performing on the Provincetown Theater stage with Shakespeare's Hamlet running through September 4th and Jonathan Larson's Rent running through September 3rd. And they'll also be presenting A Whale of a Tale Theater for young audiences with a 1-hour version of Hamlet through September 4th, also at the Provincetown Theater. Again performing at the Provincetown Theater, they'll have Hamlet and Rent, and also Ryan Landry and the Gold Dust Orphans, Snow White and the Seven Bottoms, and that's playing now through September 14th. The Theater Workshop of Nantucket is staging A.R. Gurney's Black Tie through August 3rd on the center stage, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma through August 16th at Bennett Hall, and Moby Dick rehearsed by Orson Welles August 11th through 14th at the NHA Great Hall. Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater presents The Fabulous Lipitones by John Marcus and Mark Saint Germain, with previews July 24th and 25th, and running July 26th through August 23rd. And at Watt for Kids, you can see the Surfside Snoops and the Ghost of Great Island, now running through August 28th. And finally, at White Heron Theater Company on Nantucket, running in repertory on alternating days in July and August, there's Small World Comedy Festival, Miracle on South Division Street, Family Furniture, and The Vandal. Wow, those are a lot of great shows playing now at theaters across the Cape and Islands. So please check our website or pick up one of our theater guide and calendars at a theater, restaurant, or hotel near you to learn more about these and other terrific programs and events at our 24-member theaters. And I'll see you at the theater soon. Thanks very much for joining us today. We welcome your comments and suggestions, so please don't hesitate to get in touch at info@capecodlive.org. For a roundup of what's on stage now, visit capecodlive.org, where you can also find the web addresses and box office numbers of your favorite theaters. I hope to see you at the theater soon.